All
How you
right, how
doing,
you doing,
man?
bro?
Yeah, I'm doing good, bro. How are you?
Doing pretty good, man.
Thanks so much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. The fans as well. Like, yeah, we're super grateful to have someone on board, like with the videos, who has actually worked on the project we're covering. It's
Uh,
crazy. It's so nuts. Like, yeah. So thanks again for that. So the first thing I just want to ask you is what is it like working with Kanye compared to other artists?
man, it's great. I really have been blessed to be able to work with Kanye because prior to me working with him, he was always like a big influence on my career, my music, and creatively.
Hmm.
So I would say the biggest thing is he allows you to be yourself in the room. Like that's what he wants. Like when he would give me specific projects, it was always like, yo, just do you. So that's the one thing I love about him. And he didn't put a box on creativity, obviously. So he allows you to be you, but then he allows you to be able to get in and experiment a little bit, push some envelopes. So yeah, it's amazing, man.
Okay, cool. And so that's interesting you say that, because one about how he lets you kind of do your own thing is because one of the other things I wanted to ask you is, does Kanye kind of give you creative control completely, like, and everyone else in the room who's working on a record, does everybody get the kind of equal creative control, or is it kind of like Kanye is sort of overseeing everybody and kind of keeping everybody on track with his vision?
He definitely allows you to have complete creative control. The biggest thing with him is, and this is what I love, is the best idea, no matter who's in the room. I don't care if it's the biggest producer in the world or the upcoming producer who's never had a placement. The best idea will always win. We was working in Hawaii, and the way the studio was structured, they had two main rooms: the main room on the bottom floor and up front, and then they had other little rooms where other producers were cooking up as well. But there will be several producers, artists, songwriters working on the same song in different rooms.
Okay.
Just and nobody knows what anybody's doing. They're just doing their version of what they feel like it should be. And then Kanye is really good at listening to everything and taking the best pieces to create something completely new from it.
Oh, that's so cool. So is he going from room to room, or is he kind of in another room just hearing everything at once, or kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of in the main room. So we would just take everything to the main room, play it, and then he would dissect from that room.
Okay. So obviously you produced the track Power on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. One thing that I would love to know is, where did you get that iconic sample from, the vocal sample?
Back in the day, I used to get on online, and I can't remember the site. It was a blog site, and it was this DJ, international DJ, and he collect records. And what he would do, he would travel the world, collect records, and then he would post it on his blog. And it would have the album cover. It'd have a little description about what the album was, and then he would have a download link where you could download the album. So I would go to this blog site literally every day just to see what he had new on it and download it. That particular sample I got from
What's it,
continent
number
number
six?
seven. Yeah, number seven. I mean number six. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
Afro
the
America.
that yeah. And yeah, I just randomly downloaded it from his blog one day, and I was going through looking through the samples that I had downloaded, and I came across that particular one. And I automatically knew, like, yo, this could be something special. We all do this as producers, but the first time I messed with the sample, it was like, it could be better. So I would
Yeah.
come back to it like a week later, work on it again, and be like, I feel like I could maximize it a little bit more. So it was maybe like the third or fourth time I worked on that, and I was like, yo, this is it. It just felt right. It
Yeah.
it, it just felt like it, and that wind up, getting to Kanye, and he loved it.
Did you ever kind of hear Kanye on that record, like as you were making it at all, or was it completely like a surprise when he picked that beat?
In a sense, I did, because that original beat, when I made the beat, it was actually for Rhymefest,
Hmm.
who's the person that introduced my music to Kanye. So I originally did it for him, but I hadn't sent it to him yet. He's out working with Kanye, and he hits me up like, yo, you got anything for Kanye? And I just wound up like, yo, I hadn't sent this to him yet. So I might as well put this in the Kanye batch. So that's how that kind of came about.
Okay, that's so interesting where like beats end up, you just never know like what you're
You
gonna
never
make and
know.
who's gonna end up with it. That's
Yeah,
so
you never
cool.
know, bro.
You made the beat before you connected with Kanye.
Mhm.
Did the beat go through many changes from like the original version you sent him to the version we hear today?
Oh, it went through so many changes. So when I first heard the beat, it was like my original beat. I did the beat, it got to Kanye. He loved it. He flew me out to Hawaii.
Mm.
And the first day that I got to the studio out there, he was like, yo, I already recorded something to this beat. It was amazing, but it was a completely different version. Different verses, different chorus. Like the chorus, he had actually chopped up Marvel characters saying power. So it was like
Oh
power,
wow.
power, power, power. He had just morphed them and merged them all together to where they was cut saying a hook and he was saying things in between.
Yeah.
So that was the original version. And then throughout the process of working on the album, it probably went through probably maybe 20 plus more versions.
It's so interesting you said there about him chopping in people saying power. Like that's just something
It
that like
was
normal producers would never think to do, and that's just
it was
Kanye.
it was insane, man. It was crazy.
One thing that I would love to know about in your My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy sound kit, there's a little
Mhm,
portion, I think it might be from your book, but I don't know for sure. And it's
mhm.
about the kind of day-to-day routine about making that album in Hawaii. Could you just kind of take us through that kind of, not the mentality, more so the routine? I think of it as almost like the winning routine, like this is what the people at the best of their game are doing when they're
Yeah,
creating.
so it was very eye-opening for me. Every day, it really displayed intense amount of discipline,
Hmm.
sacrifice, and just being persistent and consistent within your day. Maximizing your day. So early morning, we would always meet up at Ye's crib for breakfast. So
Hmm.
he would have these chefs, they would cook us breakfast. We'd go on the back patio by the pool and we would just eat and talk about things, whether it be music, whether it be life, whether it
Mm.
be what we created in the studio the day before. We would just have these conversations. After leaving this crib, we would go to the YMCA. They had a YMCA somewhere in Hawaii where we would go play full pickup games. And that was our conditioning every day. We would always run full court, play these games for 2-3 hours. So we would do that, leave there, go back, freshen up. Then we would hit the studio around 2-ish, and we would just lock in. And what's crazy about the studio, there was literally no distractions. Like weren't allowed to have our phones, be online on the computers. Like that was shut down. Wi-Fi was shut down. So it was a straight laser sharp focus that we
Yeah.
had being in on this project. Everybody would probably leave around 2 or 3-ish, but Kanye, he actually had a room at the studio. So he would just stay there getting extra reps in. He was always the first one at the studio and the last one to leave. I kid
Wow.
you. And it's almost like he does not sleep. He would take these little hour naps and then just go full, take an hour nap, go full. And it was like, yo, this is a whole different machine. At the same time, it was so much confirmation for me. It's like, okay, to be at your best, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to sacrifice and you have to have some type of discipline that's just extreme and untouched and unmatched to be able to
Mhm.
accomplish things at a high level.
As you're locked in, as you say, working these crazy hours every day, what's kind of like what was the approach when making this album, when getting involved in the creative process? Like, would you start with, say, sampling, or would you kind of collaborate with somebody else, get something from maybe someone playing instruments, or kind of what was the workflow like?
It was pretty random. Everything was based on mood. This is one thing that I got from working with him so much is everything was always themed out. So when you entered into the studio and you're in the studio and you're around them, you automatically know what the sound is because on the table there would be crazy art, magazine covers. He had a big screen in the room, so there will always be like these movies that was very artistic, like 300 on the screen, and it would be muted, but we would have visuals to kind of paint the picture, to sculpt music to. Everything that was on the screen was something to sculpt or score. On the wall, there would be like different album covers of certain artists, or that was the influence of the project. So the whole environment and the whole atmosphere was based on influences of what the sound should be.
Yeah.
So we were taking that and creating from that. But as far as like the process of creating, there was no set way. It could be starting with certain samples, going through certain breaks. Studying Kanye prior to me working with him, I always had like a requirements going into the studio or anytime I was creating from him, because I started to know what he liked. I had three things. It was like, okay, everything I have to use a break beat.
Okay.
Chop a break beat up, that's going to be the foundation. The second thing was sample. I knew he was big on sampling, so it's like find the craziest, most soulful sample that creates a vibe. So it was those two things, and then adding musicianship to it. That was always my formula when I was creating with him, and those were the records he was gravitating towards.
It's super interesting what you said a minute ago about how you had 300 on the screen, because when you watch the Power video, it's amazing how that just linked up in my head. Did you ever get the chance to make beats of Kanye? Because I feel like Kanye he's known so widely for his his artist ability that I feel like people don't really give him the recognition as a producer. So did you ever get the chance to kind of sit down and make beats with Kanye like that?
Not make beats actually with him, but in the room with him so many times. Like I'm right here, he's right here with the Ray ASR 10, and he's crafting. And I'm just watching and I'm reacting, to him going through samples or chopping samples, so quickly, So yeah, it was always that. Or if we was collaborating, it was always like, yo, send me that. And I would send it to him, and then he would just go in on it.
Being as this album was made over 10 years ago, do you feel like you were sort of fairly limited by technology back then? Or was it just as it is now? It was just, would you feel like the album would have been easier to make today than it would have been back then, with the process?
Technology definitely wasn't where it is now. Like just how everything's completely different now.
Yeah.
Just with access, when you can pull Splice up and have an access to a worldwide hard drive at your fingertips and be able to pull arcade in, and everything is syncing with
man.
I think with the lack of technology 10 years ago, I think a lot of things were created because of the lack thereof, because it was pushing us more. We had to kind of step out to find ways to make things happen. It wasn't just given to us. So that had a lot to do with the success of the album, the success of the sound of the album.
You had to really work for it. It wasn't just like, load up a loop, drums over it, and then, Kanye likes it, he's put a song over it, it's done. It's really like craft is there.
Yeah, it was really tapping into that.
Yeah, I kind of wish I could have been around for those days. I just can't even imagine that. Like, we have so many options now as producers, but it goes to show that that's all you need, because that album is easily a classic.
I had a blast working on it, man, and I learned so much just being in the rooms, because I was there majority, like 80% of creating the album. I saw all of the lights being worked on, and I was literally on the couch beside Nicki Minaj while she was writing her monster verse. So like being just in the rooms, bouncing back and forth and being a part of these moments, it was
part of history.
Yeah,
it's insane. Yeah, I'm going back and I'm getting little bits and pieces that are on YouTube and on different documentaries and stuff and blog posts, and I just can't imagine being there and actually witnessing that, and also not only that, but being a part of it as well. It's crazy. And yeah, I'm sure that's a standout moment for you in life. How long were you in Hawaii for?
So the first time I went down, when I first got the news that Kanye was wanting to work with me, he was loving the beat. I went down there, and I was supposed to be there for a week, but he wanted me to stay longer. So I wound up staying for 2 weeks. When I came back home, I had a goal to send him stuff every day, since I had his contact information. I had connected with him. So I was sending him a batch a day, and he was picking things. He was like, yo, hold this one. Yo, hold these two for me. The next day, hold this one for me. Hold it. And then about probably 3-4 days out of sending him stuff, he was like, yo, come back out here and track these beats for me. So I wound up going back out there. I think I was out there for another 2 weeks. And that's when I found out that I had his first single with the Power joint. And
it's just amazing how the record doesn't feel 10 years old, It really doesn't. It honestly feels fairly modern still.
I totally agree with you on that, man. Yeah, it really was timeless. Like he, like I say, he's just good at take the best ideas of the best and create something from it. You know, and he's so good at that. He's so good at just being able to sculpt. He's so good at executing what his vision is.
Kanye has that fairly unorthodox approach to making music, you know, and like that just lets him tap into like a next level of creativity and just like, you know,
Absolutely.
spontaneousness, randomness, just like the most amazing moments come from that, don't they? So
Yes.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. That's exactly it, man. And like I say, just having the best of the best around, like Mike Dean is incredible. Jeff Basker is incredible. They're the reasons why I have a Juno, a Moog in my studio right now. They would not do a session no matter where we went, whether it was Australia, whether it was London, Hawaii, all these places that we went and had different sessions. They wouldn't do a session without a Juno and a Moog in the room. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, there has to be something about this. So I was like, whenever I can afford it, those are gonna be the first two pieces of gear that I get. They kind of inspired that.
That literally hasn't changed. Like that's still like what
Yeah,
producers that are my age now are feeling
it's so
now. They
crazy.
want to get a Juno and a Moog and a Profit because of people like
Yeah,
Mike Dean too. Like that
yeah.
hasn't changed at all in over 10 years, you know, probably never will.
It's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was mainly Hawaii, like, and then some New York. I would randomly just get an email from Ye. We're going to London tomorrow. Can you come out with us?
And you would just meet him out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Going to
That's
Australia. We're going to Australia next week. Can you come out?
on just one day's notice or 1 week's notice. You
Yeah.
just drop
Yeah.
everything and just go. So the last thing I just want to touch on real quick is one of the reasons, I'm sure it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons why Kanye was insistent on getting out of America for this album was because of the whole Taylor Swift controversy, you know, all those years ago. Was he vocal about that while he was in the studio, or was it just completely, it's in the past, it's gone, you know, let's not even talk about it. This album has nothing to do with that.
I mean, there may have been like small conversations, but the main mission was to create the best of the best. He really felt like this could be a do or die situation. Right.
Yeah, one of the top YouTube videos about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is it's titled "What Saved Kanye's Career," and I just can't believe it that it was that extreme and that drastic. You know, that album had to be a success for that reason.
Yeah, it was pretty bad prior to that. It was pretty bad prior to that. You know, just based on what I saw in like conversations that were had amongst us. He put that energy into the art.
Turn something negative into a positive. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing those gems with us. Do you want to let the people know where they can find you, where they can follow you?
Yeah. So you can follow me. All my socials is at Symbolic One. That's SYMBOLYCONE. So follow me at Symbolic One. All my sound kits and you know, things of that sort, my book or whatever, you can go to s1kits.com and buy that. And I do have sounds and loops I made for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And this is basically things that I was creating around that time, you know, and I just packaged it. And
then we use them a lot in the beat for this video, which obviously you're going to hear when this video comes out. I hope you like it. It's definitely inspired a lot by Power, and you're going to hear that as soon as you hear the beat. Obviously it's not going to touch Power record, but my attempt at it, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna link all the sound kits of yours that we used in the video below, and everyone can get that 20% discount, of course, that you gave me. And yeah, make sure you guys check out the book and follow S1 right now.
Appreciate you having me on here, man.
No problem, man. Hopefully we can do something similar when I eventually cover the Yeezus album. You know, if you'd be up for it, that'd be amazing. Have a great rest of your day. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one, bro.
Thanks, bro. Peace.